Hello, everyone. Welcome to our October Training Tuesday event for OU Campus. Today's topic is using tags with your news feeds. We'll be discussing how to create custom news feeds and using tags to define their topics. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode as the session is being recorded. If you have a question during the presentation, you may submit it online by clicking the Q&A tab located on the right-hand side of your screen. Please make sure it's the Q&A tab and not chat, so we have your email address in case your question warrants a follow-up reply. All you have to do is type your question into the dialog box at the bottom of the screen and send. We will attempt to address your questions during the presentation. After the formal presentation has ended, we will review and answer all remaining questions. Today's presenter is Rich Paul, Technical Product Specialist at OmniUpdate. Rich, I'll hand it over to you. I think we're having an audio issue. Rich, I can't hear you.
Hey, everybody.
There we go.
Can you hear me now? All right.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Sorry about that. All right, so we're going to talk about tag management today and using it to create custom tag-based or topic-based news feeds. So you can have all your news articles and syndicate them out to your site based on different tags and different topics. So the agenda today is we're going to show it in action. So I'm going to create some articles, we're going to tag them, and we're going to have them show up in different places around the site. So how to kind of create once and publish everywhere. I'm going to show you how you can enable tagging in your templates and in your RSS feeds. I'm going to dive into the code. We're actually going to get into some PHP code that we're using and some source code assets to show you how you can actually grab these feeds based on different topics and drop them onto your site. And then I'm going to show you just a few different examples of ways you can utilize this and show you some examples of newsrooms and some other ways that we've leveraged this. And then we'll have Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions you want. All right, rather than talk on and bore you with a bunch of slides, let's just jump in and show you what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, can you guys see my Galena University up? Does that look good, Erica?
Yep, looks good.
Great. All right, so typically schools have news and events, right? And so they have news, usually on the home page, they'll have, a news feed of all the most recent news. But many times, schools come to us and say, well, that's great, we have that, but then we want to have news on maybe a certain site or a subsection of the site that's related to just that area. So for example, if I jump over to my admissions site or my admissions section, I've got news that's just related to admissions. It's all coming from the same news feed, but it's been filtered down and it's topical to this area of the site. So let me show you this in action, and I'll show you how to create a news article and tag it and have it show up over here in admissions. All right, I'm going to jump into OU Campus. I'm already authenticated, so I'm going to just jump right in here. And I'm going to go into the File and Folder section. I'm going to assume most people kind of know how to basically log in and create content, so I'm not going to get too deep into OU Campus basics, but let's go in here, and I'm going to go into my News folder. And I'm going to create a new news article. So I'm going to click New, and I'm going to choose my template. And I'm going to use the new page wizard here to create my news article. All right, I've got a Word document. I'm just going to grab some text, copy and paste. Here's my description. And throw in a body. I'm going to give it a name. And then I'm going to tag the content, and here's where the real magic comes in. So this was a new feature in version 10.4 where we've added the ability to tag your content. And there's a whole management side for defining and creating tags. We've done another Training Tuesday on tag management. Brandon did a really great one where he talks about the administration in the back end and some of the XSL side of it. So I'm not going to dive too deep into that today, but I will show you how to enable this tag chooser in your templates, and then how to create code that can pick these news articles up. So I'm going to go ahead and tag this. I'll just tag it as news, and I'll grab the admissions tag, stick with our admissions theme. I've got a picture here, media thumbnail. I'm going to add it to the navigation, and I'm going to click create. So here's my new article I created. Got the body of the content, added it to the left nav because I told it to. Let's just go ahead and publish this. I'm not going to run through final check right now, but of course we could do that. All right, so the page has been published. I'm going to jump out to the live site. There's my new news article. If I jump back up to the home page, remember we had that news feed on the home page. We automatically picked it up in the feed. Now it's showing up here. But remember, I also tagged it as admissions. So if I go over to that admissions site, remember we had those 2 articles over there. Now I've got a 3rd one. So it's only showing these 3 articles because those are the only ones that I've tagged with the admissions keyword. All right, so let's check this out. How did that actually work? What happened? So let me jump back into OU Campus. All right, so here's my article. I'm going to check it out and go into the page properties. Here you can see the tags that I had created. You could always go in and add more. And then I'm going to go into the RSS tab, because of this template for my news contributes to an RSS feed. Now, if you don't see this RSS feed here, it's because your template is not set up to contribute to an RSS feed. And you can set that up by going into Access and choosing the feed that you want it to contribute to. Now, if this isn't showing up by default, you probably don't want to have to set that on a per article basis. So you can go in and set that at the folder level. Let's say everything under the news folder automatically goes to the news feed, or at the template level. I'm not going to go too deep into setting up RSS. Again, there's another Training Tuesday on RSS, and our support site goes into great detail on this. But if you guys have any questions after this, feel free to answer in the Q&A or follow-up email, and I'll help get you guys all set up. But I've already set it up to have this be the default feed for all my news articles, so then I have the RSS tab. So when I created that new page, it automatically created a new item in my RSS feed, and here it is. So if I go in and look at the RSS item, you can also see those tags are there. So OU Campus tags the page and then passes those tags along to the RSS feed item. And again, I could add more in here later if I want and rebuild the feed and add new tags. All right, so how do we set this up? How do I get that tag chooser to show up in my new page template, my new page wizard, my template? So let me show you that. I'm going to jump back into the file and folder section, and I'm going to go to where my templates are located. Mine are under my resources folder under OU and templates, news. All right, these are my templates, the new page wizard, and the template that's used to create the page. If any of you have dabbled with templates and modifying those templates, you'll know that the TCF file, the template control file, this is basically the list of questions that get asked when you choose that template. So that new page wizard that pops up, all those questions are defined in here. So I'm going to edit that source and show you how you can easily add the tag chooser to your template. So we've got various variables in here. So here's our title, description, and body. These are all just text types. Some of them I've added some rows. But here's the one you'll need to add, is a new variable with a type equals tag. So add a variable with the type tag, give it a name. I've called this news tags. You can name it really anything you want. I'd say, usually lowercase, no spaces. That's what I usually do. So once we've got that tag in there, that will add that field that lets you choose from the available tags. Then we need to add a couple of new attributes to the template node. So down here in the template section, the first one we want to add is the tags. So tags equals, and then in curly braces, give the name that you defined for that variable. So I called it news tags. So we're going to say the tags equals news tags in the curly brackets. So whatever tags you choose when you're filling out the new page wizard will automatically be passed into the tags for that page. Now, since we're also we want this template to contribute to a news feed, I want it to go into the RSS item. We need to also add the RSS-tags attribute. And again, pass in the name of the tag variable. Pretty straightforward. So I've also got other things set up with the RSS, which feed, et cetera. It's going to inherit it from the folder. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but if you need help getting any of this set up, check out the other Training Tuesdays, our support site, or you can ask me any questions. All right, so we've got our template set up. Next thing we want to do is dive in a little deeper into the code. So now that we've got pages that are being tagged, we've got RSS items that have tags assigned to them. Now we just need to create a little scripting that will go and read that RSS feed and display it on a page. So I'm going to jump back up to my resources folder. I've got all my scripting here in my scripts folder under news. So a lot of you will have probably this WNL PHP if you're running PHP, the What's New Live script. I'm going to jump in here. I've broken out just the two relevant functions into another file just to make it easier to show you guys. And this is some PHP code that I've written that performs two functions. So what we need to do is we need to get the RSS feed and get just the posts that match the tag that we're passing in. And so that's what this function does here. Get RSS category, it takes two parameters, the path to the RSS feed, and that's something you just publish out to your production web server, and we'll pass that in, and then we'll pass in the tag, like admissions or athletics or whatever. So this code, what it does, this function creates an array, and it goes and reads the actual RSS file, and then it starts looping over each of the posts. And what this does here, it says, for each of the items in the RSS feed where the category equals whatever tag I passed in, go ahead and add that to the post array. And we're grabbing the title, description, the link, the date, and an image. So this reads the entire feed and then loops over it and builds a filtered array of posts. Then what we're going to do is pass the results of that function into this other function called display RSS. And this, we pass in the posts that we grabbed up here and a limit, which is just the number of posts I want to show. I want to show the top 5, or I want to show 4 or 3, whatever. Then what I'm going to do is just loop over those posts and build an unordered list. This part here really just depends on your styling and how you want to display them. I'm doing an unordered list, and then I'm styling that list with some CSS. But you guys this would be, dependent on your specific design needs. All right, so we've got two functions here. The next thing we would do is create a source code asset. And I've got one set up here. Let me go under assets. Let's just filter this to the source codes. Look at my news ones. Here we go. So let's look at the source of this asset. So what the asset does is it creates a div with a class of news, so then I can target that with my CSS and do my styling. First part of what we do is just to make sure that my script is loaded. So I just check real quick to see if that display RSS feed if that function exists. If it does not, go ahead and do an include and load the PHP code. If it's already been loaded, that does nothing. And then here's my two functions. So first, we've got the get RSS by category. So I'm going to pass in, remember it took two parameters, the path to the feed and the keyword.
I'm just going to quickly jump in. We have a couple of questions. One,
sure.
I think if we could zoom in to make the code a little more readable, I think might be helpful.
Sure.
Yeah. And then Joel Arias has a question. Can this be done through XSL only?
It can. So we could do this, I believe, through XSL only. I'll have to check and see some examples of that. I've always done this through server-side scripting so that I could, create functions. But yeah, we should be able to do this purely with XSL. It would make a call from the XSL using what we call unparsed text call out to the production server and bring that data back in. The advantage of using server-side scripting is it's also more dynamic, so we don't have to republish the page. So for example, every time somebody comes to this page, if somebody creates a new article, just refreshing the page, this page will update because it's dynamic. We did it purely with XSL. You'd have to republish the page to get the latest news articles. So possible, but most people use either PHP or .NET or Cold Fusion, some kind of server-side language so that it can be a little bit more dynamic. Should I go back to the other source code now that we've zoomed in a little bit and take another look at that?
We have one more question.
Sure.
Is there a way to pull all right, so Nate Cohen asks, is there a way to pull the metadata of a tagged page via XSL? I can successfully pull back tagged articles and create URLs to the live page, but I haven't found a way to grab the metadata for each tagged item.
You'd have to make another XSL doc call to the individual pages, so you could get back the list of pages and then you could loop over them and make another doc call to each one to read the actual document in and then grab different elements. Oh, that's
okay.
a great question.
I think that's all the questions for now, so we'll continue.
Great. And I can go back and show you that code again now that I've zoomed in a little bit. All right, so we have those two functions. So we're going to get the RSS with the feed and a category, and the results of that are going to be passed into this display RSS function. And we're going to, in this example, grab up to 6 results. So now we have this asset, this source code asset, that will go grab the news feed and any posts that are related to admissions. And I can just show you guys real quick that code again. Anybody wants to just take a look at that, we've got time. And if you guys, we can get this code to you as an example and you can take, offline, no problem. So again, grab the RSS feed, loop over it, anything that has the right tag assigned to the category, add it to the array. Then loop over the array and display it according to your HTML and CSS based on your design. You can see I'm just echoing out each of the elements of that array. So the image goes in the image source tag. I'm going to grab the title and put it in an H5. And then I'm going to I'm doing the date and a link in a paragraph tag. Okay, so now we've got our functions to grab and display the RSS items, and we've got an asset. So now we can easily drop it onto a page. So again, I'm going to go back into my file and folder structure. I'm going to go to the admissions homepage and just show you where I've dropped that in. So over here on the left side, if I go into this region, that's where that asset is. So all you have to do to add it to a page is go to your Insert Asset, and insert it on the page wherever you want. And then I just added a little heading here. If you guys have ever done any server-side source code assets, server-side scripting, you'll notice they don't actually execute within OU Campus. They're going to display some placeholder text. In this example, I've just got some text notifying the user that, hey, this will be displayed once it's published out either to a production server, a dev server. You could also have this display some, kind of placeholder text, just some dummy data with the styling, so you can kind of see what it would look like. You could do that as well. So XSL has that conditional logic to say when we're previewing it, hey, just show these sample list items, but on publish, actually execute the PHP code. All right, so let's say we've got this set up and it's working great, everybody loves it, and I don't know, let's say the athletics director comes to you and says, hey, that's really cool, I like what you've done, I want to put an athletics feed on my part of the site. So she goes in and she tags up a bunch of articles with athletics, and she says, okay, I've tagged some articles with athletics, can you create me my own feed that I can drop onto my athletics page? No problem. I'm going to go back into OU Campus. I'm going to go to my assets. So we've got our admissions news feed. Well, I could just go in and make a copy of this. You can copy assets really easily. And we'll call it the athletics, news athletics. Now, all I have to do is edit this and change the keyword. And click Save. Now I've got an athletics custom news feed. So now let's go over to that athletics page. Let's just jump into OU Campus and drop that news feed onto the athletics page. So I've checked with them. The athletics director says she would like it over here on this left region. So let me do that. Let me just give it a nice little heading. We'll make this a H3. And now I'll drop that asset in that I created. There it is. Insert. We'll click Save. All right, we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and publish it. You'll notice it has the unpublished dependencies because I had never published that asset before. It will auto-publish that at the same time. All right, we're all done. Now let's go check out the athletics homepage. And there we go. We've got the feed, and since they had already tagged those articles, they're showing up now in their news feed. So you can create unlimited assets with various tags and then use these to, give everybody their custom news feed. You can even mix and match on the same page. So let me show you an example of that. If I go up to my newsroom here on Galena, this is my newsroom, pretty typical newsroom. And down here, I've got all the, the entire news feed, right, everything. Well, what I did was I created another one of those assets with the keyword called featured. So now anything that's tagged featured will show up in this section here. So there's one asset here that grabs all the news feed, or all the news items, grabs that same feed but only one's tagged featured. Then I created another one that if you tag it as spotlight, it shows up here. It goes into a slider. So you can use this to create sort of a hierarchy of content tagged different ways.
We've got quite a few questions, so I'll just interject with some of those. Let's see. Ivanka Tolan wants to know if the code will be posted on the OCN website.
Yeah, we can post that out there, absolutely.
Okay. And then I guess when should we be able to view it? I imagine that would be, if not by the end of this day, by tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's also usually when we try to have the video up as well. Morgan Bibbs would like to know, is it possible to have a form in OU whose entries are fed as a feed or a page created automatically and submitted to a designated user to approve? For example, so faculty who aren't OU administrators could submit career-related events to a feed as feed items.
To make sure I understand, so you're wondering if people can create or contribute to a feed outside of OU Campus, or they would be OU Campus users?
Let's see. I'm going to guess from the question. Let's see. Yeah, Morgan says to contribute as outside users. So I imagine having a form that they, such as through an LDP form, and they submit items through that form.
There's currently, well, out of the box, there's not a way to create new pages in OU Campus outside of OU Campus. You could submit a form entry, and that would go in and to a form submission, and that could be sent off to an OU Campus user who could then create that content for you. Now, of course, there are APIs in OU Campus, and all the functionality in OU Campus is accessible through the APIs. So in theory, the APIs could be used to create content, but that would they would require some custom code written to access the APIs to do that.
Yeah. And then Morgan has a follow-up of, oh, okay, I think we answered the question. Let's see. Let me scroll back to some of these others. Norma Campbell would like to know, does it matter where the tag RSS item training.php file goes? We don't seem to have a scripts directory.
No, it can go anywhere. I happen to just, put mine into that folder. That's the way I've organized it, but it can be anywhere. All you need to do is make sure that you're just pointing to the path to where your script is located.
And then Wingcom says, when selecting the tags in the news item, can the tags be displayed as checkboxes?
There is ways to do that. In fact, prior to tag management, we usually would do it through checkboxes. Currently, the tag interface for tag management does use that tag chooser that I showed you, and that's currently the only interface we have. So let's just look at the properties here. So this is the interface for tag management currently. That's a good suggestion. I will pass that on to the dev team.
I would also say if the reason you want checkboxes is to limit the amount of tags that people can use to apply to a newsfeed, you might want to look into the tag access settings for the directory and using filtered tags or collections.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can limit the tags that are available in a particular folder, so that you can only choose, let's say, news-related tags or certain tags.
Ted Hattermer says, can you use tags in a query string? You
can. So any of the query strings are available to be picked up through, let's say, PHP or other server-side scripting. So you can look at, access it through the Git type of variables, and we can do that. I've done some of that where playing around with, choosing different tags. In fact, let me show you an example of that. So let's say we're using, in our blogs, we do that. So let's say I say I want to filter it by President Godding, you can see these are a URL variable, and then the PHP code has access to these and can pick them up and do further filtering.
Okay, it looks like, I think, okay, Ivanka has a follow-up who says, we would like to restrict the tags on the TCF to be pulled based on site access settings. So I believe if you're talking about, if you're talking about tag access settings, that can be managed through the access settings for that directory, and you or another administrator would go in and set that basically to mirror what your site access settings are for tags, if I understand your question correctly.
Yeah, and you can restrict the tags that are available. So just like you can restrict them when you're in page properties, you can also restrict them here. So in the template control file in the TCF, you can restrict which tags are able to be chosen when you're doing a new page wizard. So you can restrict them here as well. If you wanted to lock those down to certain tags in certain sections of the site, depending on where you're at, you can do that.
She says we do not want to hard code the tags. I believe you can hard tag in a collection of tags. Can they be pulled dynamically from the site access settings?
In this new page wizard, it currently has to be set at the template level, so you do have to define those in the source of the TCF currently. It's definitely on the dev roadmap to be able to pick it up from a more global setting like site access or folder access. But currently, the tags, if you want to limit the tags in this dropdown in the new page wizard, it does have to be edited in the TCF file. So you'd have to get into the source and do it in here.
Morgan Bibb says, so tag groups are assigned by template, not by user group. Tags are assigned per at either the site access settings or a directory access settings. So tags are not specific to user groups. They're specific to a folder, such as, say, academics.
Right. So if we're in here in the news, I could go in to the tag access for the news folder and say, all right, I want to just have only, allow only these tags or disallow certain tags. And I can apply fixed tags, which will just be applied by default to any new page you're creating in there. And then the same thing applies at the site level. Currently, the TCF, the new page wizards, do not use these settings. They need to be set at the template level, so you'd have to edit that in the TCF.
All right, it looks like that's all the questions for now. So let's continue.
Great, thanks. Excellent questions. Thanks, everybody. All right, let's see. I also want to show you another thing that people do often is sort of curation of content. So I've talked to a lot of schools where they say, this is our scenario. We've got people creating news articles, lots of content, lots of stories. And my job is, I'm in charge of the homepage. This featured news section is my section. I own that. So my job is to go browse the news section, look through all the news articles, and cherry pick certain ones that I find interesting that I want to promote on the featured news section. Not everybody has access to this, only me. So they want to be able to take an existing news article and sort of elevate it and promote it to a featured news. So I've shown you how you can go in when you're creating content initially and tag it, but you can also go through and curate it after the fact. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to go and find an article that I think would look good or would be good for the admission section. And let's see. Let's do free food in the student union, all right? This looks like a good article that I'm going to promote to the admission section. So let me jump into OU Campus. I can edit this page. I'll check it out. and I'll go into Properties. And that home page I showed you with the featured section, that's using an RSS feed. So I'm going to go into the RSS section. I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to apply that tag, admission. Actually, you know what? This one, I'm going to call this featured. So we have it show up on the home page. Why don't we do that? So now I've added the feature tag, and I click Save. Then all I need to do is just rebuild my feed. So publish that. And that'll rebuild the feed and add that tag, the featured tag, to that article. So let me go out to my home page and jump in here. And there's my free food in the Student Union showing up under the featured section. So you can use that to curate content and to elevate content up and promote articles maybe that have already been written. And I could have added the admissions tag and had it show up on the admissions news feed or any number of feeds, athletics, whatever I've set up in the system. I could even add multiple tags. I could have added admissions and featured. So it would show up here and also show up over in the admissions news feed we had set up. All right, any other questions? I'll definitely get you guys the code that I've been working on. We'll have the recording up. And if there's any follow-up questions after the fact, feel free to shoot me an email, Rich at OmniUpdate. I can answer any questions.
We have a couple of questions. Wingcom says, can it be restricted to a specific user that can select the featured tag?
Currently, if you have access to tags, you do have access to all of the tags. But different user levels can go in and manage them, so you have to be a higher level to be able to manage tags. You can also go in and restrict tags to certain folders, but currently we don't have group access to tags.
Yeah. And Nate Cohen says, just to verify, this only works with RSS items, right?
No, definitely not. So you can also just tag just a page itself. And then the XSL templates, there's a bunch of new XSL functions that can go and access those tags and allow you to do things like related content or other things that, just at a page level, not even using RSS at all. I just showed the example of taking it to an RSS feed, but you don't have to do that. If you check out the tag management training Tuesday that we did in, I think that was done in July of this year,
yeah.
Brandon goes over that and goes over those XSL calls that you can do that purely at a page level to create, related content and other kinds of, tag management functionality.
Yes, it looks like we had a tag management and XSL training Tuesday in July. So.
And everybody knows how to get to the training Tuesdays. So at the support site, you can come in here. We've got all these different topics, and we did one on RSS as well. So we've got the tag management. Back in September, we did RSS. So if you guys need to get help getting the RSS set up, that's a good one to look at. And of course, we have a great YouTube channel. So the OmniUpdate training department has a great YouTube channel with a lot of excellent videos in there, and all the training Tuesdays are in there as well.
Okay. Yeah, I believe we also have a Vimeo account that hosts the videos as well, and I believe if you look at the archived videos on our support site, you'll see them on Vimeo. So multiple locations where you can watch these videos. And does anyone else have any other questions? If not, we'll kind of go into wrapping this up and announcements and housekeeping. Okay. Well, Rich, if you want to go back to the PowerPoint, we have a slide with a couple useful URLs on it after the Q&A slide.
All right, hang on. Here we go.
All right. So yes, what we just saw, we do have an archive of all our Training Tuesdays, and this one will be hosted there as well. Probably will be up by the end of today. If not, definitely by tomorrow. And so you can watch this, like take notes. It was a little more of a technical one. And then I also want to remind everybody about the UX feedback program. This is open to any user of OU Campus, not just administrators or named users, and it's a chance to give feedback about what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see in the future. And then I'd also just like to remind everybody we have the training conference to look forward to in the first week of April. It'll be down in San Diego on an island, apparently, so that's exciting. And as far as Training Tuesdays go, if you want to go to the next slide, we're going to take a bit of a break over the holidays, so we won't have any in November and December. We'll pick up again in January, and we'll announce that, well in advance. So just stay tuned for that announcement, and enjoy your holidays. All right, and I think with that, unless there's any final last-minute questions, I believe that's it for our presentation.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, yeah, thank you, everyone, very much for attending. Have a great day.